Dallas Pimiento, Book 2, Bronco 2. Start with a piece called Her Own Edible Version. "This is Trip," Willa said just before she bit the chocolate facsimile's head off. "Where'd you get it?" Patricia asked. She was eating a light snack consisting of nothing more than a hard, unsalted cracker and very hot water flavored with a wedge of lemon. "There's a place near the Salutation building that makes them. You bring in 2 photographs, one taken from the front and the second from the side, and they can make the figure from that." "Can I see it?" Patricia asked. Willa held it out. Patricia made as if to take it, but Willa drew it back. "What's wrong?" "I don't want your fingers on it," Willa said. "Why, because he's your boyfriend?" "Was, Patricia, and no, that's not the reason. I just don't want your germs." "I don't have germs. Everybody has germs, Patricia. My hands are clean. It doesn't matter. You've got your hands all over it," Patricia noted. "I don't mind eating my own germs." "You mean you're going to eat that whole lump of chocolate?" "As much as I can stuff in." "And then what?" "And then I'll throw the rest of it away." "I'm sorry, Willa, but you've really let yourself go since Trip died." "Trip's not dead." "Oh, come on. He's not dead, Patricia. He's lost. Maybe forever, trapped in some subterranean chamber." "You still miss him?" "Of course I do." "Then why are you eating this statue of him so angrily?" "Because he's an asshole." Macro compunction. "Gentlemen," Dr. Shafton Slap addressed the committee, even though it contained 2 women, "the time has come to initiate the macro compunction phase of our operations." The excitement that met this announcement was visible in the faces of all those seated about the table. "So soon?" asked Felton Sharp. "What about the so-called 10-year plan?" A couple of others echoed this. "You know that I would not be saying this unless I had the received word from the highest authority." Shafton Slap pulled a piece of paper out from his briefcase. "I, too, am an employee." He handed the paper to the man on his left. "Pass this around," he said. After reading what the paper had to say, Dot Darkwood asked, "How will this affect our analysis of the sports obsessions of the blue-collar class?" "That's your field, right, Dot?" Shafton Slap asked. "Well, my reading of the revised timeline is that only the most vital projects will be allowed to proceed while macro-compunction is underway." "Who determines what projects are the most vital?" Sharp pushed his glasses further up the bridge of his nose with one purple-stained finger. "As senior administrator and chief of research, I will be making those determinations," Shafton Slap said almost apologetically. "I must protest," Dennis DeLardo tapped the tabletop with his tapper. "The fact that the 10-year plan has been altered, in fact cut nearly in half, changes everything. The plan was supposedly the foundation of all other research here." "Oh, come now, Dennis. We all know that most of the projects done here are time killers, done more for the sake of keeping our budget as large as possible." Shafton Slap's statement hurt many feelings around the table. "I don't think that's fair, Dr. Shafton Slap," said the other woman present, Norita McGugg. "My work with vending machines is extremely rewarding." "Well," Shafton Slap snorted, "what would you have me do?" "Allow the formation of a subcommittee to determine which projects go on hold," advised the hippie of the group, Don Flipwheat, much to Shafton Slap's disgust. Stagecraft of the Stegosaurus. The Stegosaurus on stage at the Plutocrat Theater was made of pieces of vinyl stretched over a hinged framework of wire and balsa wood. Operated from within by 3 highly trained men, its movements have been coordinated to complement the many speeches it was required to make, these last performed by the man nearest the head. Although at first resented by the other actors in the play, who felt its presence detracted from their performances and distracted the audience, the creature was ultimately admitted to be a stunning piece of work, both in design and execution. The play, Brother Magram's House of Ten, did not originally call for one of the main characters to be played by a Stegosaurus, but even the author, once he saw the production, concurred with the director's choice of casting. The Stegosaurus fulfilled the role of Pa Finger, the old lodger whose trash-strewn apartment hides a secret that will affect the fortunes of 2 couples. During dress rehearsal, Dr. Spangle, the chief of maintenance for the Plutocrat since the day had opened, watched from the balcony. He chewed his gum as always and said nothing. Cranium, the actor playing the spy, glanced up at Spargle during an off-stage moment. Dr. Sparkle doesn't like it, he said quietly. He looked back at Tina, one of the stagehands. Who cares what that old man likes, she whispered. As the scene ended, she rushed on stage and gathered up the stray trash that littered Finger's apartment. The Stegosaurus lumbered into the wings in its three constituent parts. Ned Feast, the man in the tail section, emerged. Look at me, he hissed. I'm already sweating. Opening night is going to be hell. He grabbed a drink of water from the cooler. Watch how much you drink, Tina advised. Remember, you can't pee yet. She hustled back on stage to help setting up the next scene, the quiet, deserted grove wherein the poor couple promised each other eternal devotion. Faster, came the shout from the auditorium. What's the hold-up? Get that scene up! The director turned to see Dr. Sparkle beside him. What is it? He asked, seeing the look on the old man's face. This is the last show I work here, Sparkle told him. Brain Humper led away. Another case closed, eh, Detective? Trent Fricker's pen was posed over his notebook as he stood beside Phil Calcior, watching two uniformed officers stuff the slump-shouldered brute that the Tomatoville Comment's editor-in-chief was already calling the Brain Humper into the back of a police cruiser. If you say so, newspaperman, Calcior turned to look at a couple more of his men who were sealing off the suspect's residence with yellow tape and orange padlocks. Hurry up, you guys, he called. Although Fricker didn't like the Brain Humper nickname, he used it anyway. It would help further sensationalize the story and sell more papers. Detective, could you speculate as to why the Brain Humper, if indeed he is the one responsible for Albert Oncologue Jerry's death, did such a thing? Calcier pinched the bridge of his nose. For the 20th time in the last 6 hours, he regretted having used the phrase, humped his brain. I have no comment on that topic, newspaper man, he said flatly, and now I'm leaving. He walked away. Thanks, Detective, Fricker called cheerfully, knowing it irritated Calcior. Then he tapped his notebook with his pen and glanced around once more before flipping it shut and also taking his leave. Did you buy this Brain Humper shit? Bobby Yuletide asked as the two met back at Fricker's car. Dawson does. Calcior claims he does. Isn't that enough for you? Fricker got behind the wheel with a groan. 32 years old, and he already felt stiff as a board. Yuletide got in beside him, but with a grin. He was an exercise enthusiast who regularly climbed the Gonzo Mountains to the west of Tomatoville. Watching them drive away was the goat Pantop. He fingered his graying beard anxiously. Could he break a police padlock? It wasn't a question of scruples. He had no respect for rules that got in his way. It was a question of sheer logistics. Not only were the special locks made of a unique polymer and hard to crack, the house itself would probably be watched secretly all night. He decided to come back in a couple of hours with a pair of bolt cutters. A sweet treat from Scuppers. Dallas Pimiento went out to his mailbox at the end of the driveway and found a plastic bag hanging from it. Inside was an oversized parcel containing a sweet treat from Scuppers. He didn't have to open it to know that. The information was printed on the box. He examined the address of the sender as he walked back to the house. It was from Angela O'Crea. The sweet treats proved to be 24 delicious chocolates. As Pimiento had given up caffeine, he put the box into the freezer until the day came when he would know what to do with them. While he was not eating his treats, he thought about Miss O'Crea. He had not met her yet, but she had sent him 2 thoughtful gifts in the mail. It was time to return the favor. Going into one of the bedrooms where he kept finished paintings, Pimiento selected one that was technically good, but didn't mean much to him personally. This one will be good, he said. He looked in the back of the title. Creosote Comes in Barrels. He read, a fine title. He decided not to wrap the painting, nor to mail it, but to deliver it in person. 10 minutes later, he was out the door, heading for the bus stop. He's leaving the house, Wetch's wife said to his wife. Stop spying on that man, Trelane looked over the top of her paper. It's important to keep tabs on strangers, Weiss was not apologetic. He's been here 3 months. I'm going to follow him, Wetch said to himself more than anything. Don't, please don't. Trelane's pleading was in vain. He's following that new guy, Alton Glastonbury announced. His wife, Hector, was watching TV while doing the ironing. Are you going to follow him? She asked. Alton thought about it. No, he looked at the TV screen. No, I don't feel like getting dressed. He was still in his pajamas. Who knows what he might find out, Hector said teasingly. I'll just write down what time he left and what time he comes back. Weiss might be up to something particularly sneaky, Hector purred. Will you shut your mouth? Alton's toes curled up inside his slippers. The dinner of the half-sized men. Gentlemen, if I might have your attention a moment. Generous, the chairman of the half-sized men league, rose from his seat at the high table. Gentlemen, Generous, said, hefting his glass, I would like to propose a toast, gentlemen, to the preceding year, the best year, in my opinion, in the history of the half-sized men league so far. The other participants at the dinner rose to their little feet as well, and downed their glasses at the same time. And now, gentlemen and friends, I give you our speaker for this evening, a man whom you all know as a giant among half-sized men, a man whom you may not know is, in addition to being a first-rate amateur pastry chef, a cobbler of no little skill, Mr. Max Sawyer. Applause followed Generous's introduction as a stout man with a limp and a white flat-top haircut rose, shook hands with Generous, and took his place at the podium. Thank you, Cecil, Sawyer began in a phlegmy voice, as he launched into a connected series of anecdotes about his days as a boy in the rural ways to the east. A note was passed to Hedge Funtz, sitting at a table in the darkness at the rear of the rented hall. Somebody outside told me to give this to you, whispered another member of the league. Funtz glanced at it. What did he look like, he hissed. A full-sized fella, big mustache. The other man shrugged his shoulders as he headed back to his own table. Excuse me, Funtz whispered to his neighbors. He went out into the gold-carpeted lobby. He saw the man who had sent the note through the glass wall at the front of the building. Funtz didn't bother putting on his leg extenders. He went out as he was to meet the man. Your Hedge, Funtz? The man asked. Yes. You got my note? Obviously. What do you want? I want $5,000. For what? Funtz demanded. For the responsibility of keeping your secret. What had once been perfect was now on display. What is Hedge Funtz's secret, my little friend? Gumblag asked me. I don't know yet, I replied irritably. I had been sitting upright all night in a cheap seat on this train. Gumblag, occupying the much more comfortable position of my left hand's puppet, was still full of energy. Who is the unnamed man who claims to know this secret? The puppet, a basic model made out of a red and black striped tube sock and bearing a face not unlike William Frawley's, continued his interrogation. Enough, I cried. I don't know yet. But Lance, how can that be? Surely you, of all the people in the world, must know the answer. Is it to be revealed to you at some point? Gumlag's arms, pathetic, empty, and ultimately vestigial, flopped about as he danced an agitated accompaniment to his own words. Yes, I sighed. That's it, essentially. Before Gumlag could pester me further, the old man across the aisle from us put down his copy of Spiegel and turned to me slowly. Are you in show business? He asked. Me? Well, no, not really. In a way, I guess show business includes the traditional arts as well as making a public spectacle of oneself, but as a matter of principle, I have consciously put that realm from me. I consider my art to be, necessarily, a private one. You should be. You're very good with the little fellow. The old man's accent was thick but warm. Swedish? Some Baltic isle, perhaps? I'm not a half-sized man, if that's what you're suggesting, Gumlag addressed himself to the man. I'm very clever, yes, said my fellow passenger, but I feel silly talking to a puppet. Feel silly? Gumlag sounded hurt. He wriggled himself off my hand, and by way of batteries hidden somewhere either in his underwear or his adenoids, jumped into the middle of the aisle. Are you some kind of bigot? He demanded. I picked up the old man's copy of Spiegel off the floor after his departure. I managed to read about a third of it without difficulty. The failure of classic surrealism to anticipate Mel Gibson. Ned Feast's toothbrush had slipped and cut his gum. The next 24 hours he suffered when chewing or even when making the odd noises he customarily made at the little duck people in the dollhouse. Prepared red beans were his meal of choice. While wincing over their mastication, he reviewed his notes from yesterday's class. The failure of classic surrealism, Professor Tourne had said, is its failure to anticipate that which defies the surreal. Like Mel Gibson, Nancy had interjected. There followed a comedic exchange which Tourne tried to understand how Mel Gibson had failed to anticipate that which defies the surreal. Finally, it was explained to him that Mel Gibson was that which defies the surreal. At the point at which Tourne asked how Gibson defied the surreal, Feast's notes petered out into a series of doodles and lists of CDs he wanted to buy. Feast threw the empty bean can into the trash. He had just taken up his textbook for Tourne's class when the doorbell sounded. Ned. It was Wetch Weiss. Hey, what's up? Feast still held the book, his finger holding his place. Have you seen what's in your backyard? Feast followed Weiss outside. You had no idea this was here? The older man asked. Standing in the middle of the yard was the earth, upturned about its base as if it had been thrust into the light from below, was a large metal catafalque-like box, covered in arcane and grotesque symbols and figures. I saw it from my attic, Weiss explained. What is it? Feast asked. You're asking the wrong guy. Together they approached the object. It loomed over them some 12 feet in the air, with who knew how much more still buried. As Feast touched one side of it, a seam appeared. A strangely hinged door opened. Inside was an egg-shaped compartment containing the missing Trip Sedgem. Weiss and Feast helped him out. Mel Gibson says hello, Sedgem whispered feebly. And then there was Oprah. Oprah Winfrey, or a cunningly crafted robotic facsimile thereof, paid a visit to Tomatoville within a week of the return of Trip Sedgem. It's too bad Trip is too weak to come to the studio, she patted her lap rhythmically. There we have every modern convenience and an audience that I'm sure would love to ask him questions about his ordeal. She spoke to Sedgem's mother, who sat on a sofa beside her son in her living room. On the other side of the pale and drawn young man sat his girlfriend Willa. Sedgem himself looked out of the hollow eyes of the celebrity visitor. He said little more than yes or no when he wasn't making cryptic statements like the shadows or the elements of triphase determinism, or Mel Gibson says hello. While Sedgem took Oprah and a cameraman, while Mrs. Sedgem took Oprah and a cameraman on a tour of her son's childhood room, Willa and Trip remained on the sofa, holding hands and talking softly. There were a half-dozen members of Oprah's crew in the living room besides. Trip, perhaps emboldened to sensitivity and understanding due to the presence of Oprah, asked Willa if she had been lonely while he was gone. If so, he apologized. The woman began to cry. The keen eyes and ears of producer Chet Grabfuss zeroed in. Oh, Trip, I'm so sorry. I'm the one who should apologize, Willa stammered. No, Trip protested feebly. Dirt's bellwether is its own reward. He didn't seem to express what he wanted to express, but it was all he could manage. I've been seeing someone else, Willa exploded with sobs. Grabfuss darted from the room. He returned with Oprah. Having confession time without me, are we? Naughty, naughty, she signaled the cameraman, who nodded. Now, Willa, how has it been for you while Trip has been undergoing this traumatizing ordeal? I thought he was gone for good, Willa wept, barely audible. Did you sleep with another man? Oprah sounded hopeful. The films of Gabrielle F. Being Agenda is usually the film that first springs to the mind of an American when the name of the actor Gabrielle F. is mentioned. Certainly, it was his biggest hit here in the land of the fat poor people. However, in his native Italy, one is far more likely to hear of such films as Il Pubblicano Singolaro, The Lonely Accountant, Su tutto Graziani Andante, Hasten Towards Charity, El Peculiaranum de Mortimus, The Grooming of Mortimer, or Grosso Thermometer Rivulente, Big Raging Current. Of course, any filmography of more than 80 films such as that of F's cannot possibly be thoroughly explored in any paper as short as this one is destined to be, but I will try in the space available to me to give you, the film-goer tired of the obvious and implausible modern American cinema, both mainstream and independent to tell you the truth, an idea of the riches to be found in this varied and profoundly intelligent body of work. Mind you, if I had more space to work with, I might be able to do more than merely mention a couple of titles that, to be honest, you probably aren't going to be able to find in any video store outside downtown Rome. Sometimes it seems to me that these self-imposed rules that govern the writing of my pieces are ultimately just hurting me. But then I think about all the rambling, undisciplined stuff I've done over the years that never amounted to anything because I can't stay focused and I don't give a damn about some hackneyed old plot, and I realize that, like the homely, untalented girl who dreams of moving to the big city before it's too late, I'm probably better off where I am. That said, it remains now for me to complete this piece on the topic stated at the beginning and within the parameters laid down for it. In addition to the 5 films mentioned above, I think we can add Hexofort, Six-Sided Fortress, Il Perpetuo Meccanicali, Dusty's Intriguing Summer, Gamma Signori, Mr. Churchill, and Lumberi Lumbero, Lumbago's Limbering Effects. Though these are not counted among the greatest of F's films by the ossified cowards of academia, they are actual foreign films that you have to read while you watch so that you miss most of the visual treats of the film and therefore are forced to watch again, making it more likely that you'll become familiar with them. The Adlai Stevenson Pagoda. Where are we going, Brad? Kim Kickmore asked her husband. He had insisted on their taking a bus ride together, but told her nothing of their intended destination. I wish we owned a car, thought Brad, not for the first time. You'll see, he kept telling Kim, who wondered if he was taking her to some secluded spot to murder her. How would she react? But then, thought Brad, even if we owned a car, we couldn't take it on this trip. Where are we going, Brad? Kim asked again as she and Brad got off the bus at the Primary Point stop. You'll see, Brad told her, almost there. He added, leading her by the hand through the entrance to Primary Point Park. We're going to the pagoda? Kim asked, as it was now obvious where they were headed. Brad, this is exactly why I hate surprises. You haven't been surprised yet. You'll like this, I swear. They walked into the pagoda, but instead of going to the top, Brad led them through a door Kim had never noticed, down narrow concrete stairs. You're not going to kill me, are you, Brad? Kim asked. No, I'm not. Brad pulled a small electronic device out of his pocket and put it into a crack in the damp wall. Where'd you get that? Kim asked. Kim Mornado contacted me. He did? When? Last week. He sent me this. Brad pointed at the blinking device, which as he spoke was converting the unseen dimensional portal into a usable doorway, and told me how to use it. Is that where you were on Tuesday? Kim demanded accusingly. Yes. Kim, it's wonderful. It's a whole new world. I still don't like surprises, Kim balked as Brad pulled her towards the now open doorway, glowing like a sickly green in the gloom. Don't be afraid. It's just a nice little town. Full of monsters, I bet, Kim said as she stepped it through.